Night covered the forest like a black blanket. The trees stood tall, their branches whispering in the cold wind. The air was heavy, almost waiting for something to happen. Then it came, a sound that shook the silence, a roar from the sky. The animals ran. Birds burst out of the trees, screaming into the night. A flash of fire crossed the clouds, bright and terrible. Something burned as it fell. It cut through the sky like a dying star. And then, boom. The earth trembled as the crash landed deep inside the forest. Far away, a man heard it. He was a wanderer, living alone at the edge of the wilderness. People called him strange. Some said he was dangerous, others said he wanted to be forgotten. But in truth, he was only tired of the world. Alone was easier. Alone was safe, but that sound, it called to him. He took his lantern and his old rifle and began walking through the dark. Each step on the damp soil echoed in the silence. He knew this was no normal fire. No storm, no meteor. Something alive had fallen. Smoke guided him. The air smelled like burned metal, sharp and bitter. Soon, between the broken trees, he saw it. A ship. It was not like any human ship. Its shape was strange, almost alive. The surface shone with silver plates, but cracked and glowing with blue fire. Sparks jumped from the broken engine. A strange symbol was carved on its side, glowing faintly like dying stars. The man's breath stopped. This was no machine of Earth. He stepped closer, the heat of the wreck burning his face. Inside the broken hull, shadows moved. He raised his rifle, ready for danger. But what he found froze him in place. A woman, or something like a woman. Her skin was pale, almost shining in the light of the fire. Strange marks glowed softly across her arms like veins of light. Her face was sharp, alien, yet filled with pain. She lay trapped under a piece of metal, bleeding a dark silver-blue liquid. Next to her was a child. The child clung to her, small hands glowing faintly. Its eyes were wide, filled with fear, but they were eyes too human to ignore. It hid behind the mother, but did not run from the man. Instead, it looked at him with silent hope. The man lowered his rifle. He had fought wars before, seen soldiers die, seen enemies bleed. But this was different. This was a mother and her child. The alien mother coughed, trying to speak. The words were broken, strange sounds from another tongue. But her meaning was clear. She was begging. She reached out a trembling hand toward him. Then her body gave way and she collapsed unconscious. The child cried softly, holding her, looking at the human man as if he was the only one who could save them. The man's heart pounded. His mind screamed, leave. This was not his fight. These were not his kind. Soldiers would come. Hunters would come. Whoever owned the skies would not let this crash go unseen. And yet, he saw the child's tears. He heard the broken breath of the mother. He remembered his own past, the battles, the blood, the people he failed to save. He dropped the rifle. With a grunt, he pushed away the heavy piece of metal trapping the mother. His hands burned, but he did not stop. He lifted her onto his shoulder, weak but alive. The child followed, stumbling but clinging to his coat. Smoke rose higher into the night. The fire glowed brighter. Anyone nearby could see it. Time was short. The man carried them into the forest. Branches cut his face, roots caught his feet, but he kept moving. The mother groaned in his arms, her blood leaving glowing marks on his clothes. The child looked around in fear as if something hunted them already. Finally, they reached his cabin, a small wooden shelter hidden among rocks and trees. He pushed the door open and laid the alien mother on his bed. She breathed weakly, her skin cold, her glowing marks fading. The child sat beside her, holding her hand. Its eyes never left the man. He stared at them, confused, afraid, but also responsible. He had chosen this path. From outside, the wind howled. But under the wind, another sound came. Distant engines, voices, lights moving in the far forest. They were not alone. Someone was searching for the wreck. The man's face hardened. He closed the door, locked it, and took up his rifle again. He knew this was the beginning of something dangerous, something bigger than him. But when he looked at the child and the mother, he knew one thing: he could not abandon them. And in that moment, deep in the shadows of the forest, a choice was made. A choice that would change not only their lives, but perhaps the fate of more than one world. The night had not ended. The forest outside still burned with the glow of the crash, and the man knew the smoke would call strangers soon. He locked the cabin door tight, then turned to the two beings he had just brought into his home. The alien mother lay weak on his bed, her skin pale and covered with faint glowing lines. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. The strange liquid, her blood, still leaked from a wound across her side. The child sat close, clutching her hand, eyes shining with silent fear. The man's cabin was small, wooden walls, one bed, a rough table, a chair, and shelves of supplies. It was never meant to hold secrets, never meant to protect something not of this world, and yet here they were. The man opened a wooden box, pulling out what little medicine he had. Old bandages, herbs, alcohol. He was no doctor, but he had patched enough wounds in the past. He took a deep breath and began cleaning the mother's wound. The liquid burned on his skin. He hissed but kept going. The child made a soft sound, almost a warning. The man shook his head. "If I don't do this, she won't live," he whispered, even though he knew the child might not understand. But perhaps the child did, because instead of stopping him, the small alien placed its glowing hands on the wound. The man froze. A soft light spread from the child's palms. It was not strong, not enough to close the wound, but enough to slow the bleeding, enough to give hope. The man stared, half in fear, half in wonder. The child's power was real, something no human had. He had seen machines of war, weapons that could level cities, but never this. This was life itself in the child's touch. When the light faded, the child sagged, exhausted. The man quickly wrapped the wound with clean cloth, pressing it firm. The mother's breathing steadied. Not healed, but alive. He sat back, sweating, his hands trembling. "What have I pulled into my life?" he muttered to himself. The night grew deeper. The wind outside carried strange sounds, metallic clicks, the hum of machines. He stepped to the window and saw distant lights moving through the trees. Whoever searched was not human villagers. No torches, no horses. These were soldiers, maybe hunters with devices that cut through darkness like knives. He knew they would find his cabin if they got too close. The man moved quickly. He opened a hidden trapdoor in the floor, an old cellar he used to store food in winter. "Down," he whispered to the child, pointing. At first the child refused, holding the mother's hand tight. But when the man lifted the woman carefully and carried her down the wooden steps, the child followed, clinging to his coat. The cellar was cold, smelling of earth and dust. Barrels and jars lined the walls, but there was just enough space for them to hide. The man laid the mother on blankets and gave the child water from a tin cup. Then he returned upstairs. He blew out the lantern, leaving only faint moonlight through the cracks of the roof. He loaded his rifle, every sound too loud in the silence. His ears strained. The soldiers were close now. He could hear their voices, strange, flat, inhuman. One voice stopped just outside the cabin. Boots pressed against the soil. A sharp light flashed across the windows. The man held his breath, finger on the trigger, but the footsteps moved on. The voices faded deeper into the forest, away from the cabin. He let out the breath he had been holding, his body shaking. For now they were safe, but he knew safety would not last. They would search again. They would return. Down in the cellar, the child looked at him with wide eyes, as if asking if the danger was gone. He nodded slowly. The child relaxed a little but stayed close to the mother, never letting go of her hand. The man sat on the cellar steps, staring at the two of them. He should have walked away when he first saw the wreck. He should have left them there, let fate take them. But he hadn't. Something in him had changed. He remembered faces from long ago, people he failed to protect in war, people who trusted him and died anyway. Maybe saving this mother and child was a way to balance that. Or maybe it was madness. Still, he could not deny the truth. They were his responsibility now. The mother stirred, her eyes opening faintly. She looked at the man, her gaze sharp even in weakness. She spoke in her broken voice again. The words were not clear, but the feeling was. Gratitude, plea, trust. Then her eyes closed once more. The man sat there in silence, the weight of the night pressing heavy on his shoulders. Outside, the forest was no longer quiet. The hunters were moving, searching. The crash had not been ignored. Someone wanted this mother and child dead or captured, and the man realized something with cold certainty. By saving them, he had stepped into a war he did not understand. But when he looked at the child's small glowing hands and the mother's fragile body, he knew one thing: he would not abandon them, no matter what came from the forest. The morning light crept slowly into the forest, but it brought no peace. Smoke still rose from the place where the alien ship had fallen. The man knew the hunters had not given up. They would search again, this time more carefully. In the cellar, the alien mother slept in a restless half-dream. Her skin glowed faintly under the bandages. The child sat beside her, wide awake, staring at the wooden ceiling above as if it could sense the danger beyond it. The man stood near the window, his rifle in hand. His eyes never rested. Every sound outside made his muscles tense. A snapping branch, a bird taking flight. Even the wind seemed full of whispers. He had lived alone for years, hidden from men and their wars. But now he was hunted again, only this time the enemy was something not entirely human. By midday, the sound returned, engines, not loud machines like trucks, but low, strange humming, almost insect-like. The man felt his chest tighten. He looked through the cracks of his cabin and saw them, shapes moving between the trees. They wore armor, not like soldiers he once knew, but smooth black suits that shimmered in the light. Their helmets were featureless, glowing with red lines across the front. In their hands they carried weapons that looked alive, long, sharp devices that pulsed faintly as if breathing. They were not here to rescue. They were hunters. The man rushed to the cellar. The child looked up at him, sensing something wrong. He crouched low, whispering fast, "Quiet, stay with her. Do not make a sound." He pointed a finger to his lips. The child nodded, though its eyes trembled with fear. The man closed the trapdoor and scattered a rug and broken crates on top, hiding the entrance. Then he moved back to his table, pretending to be alone, pretending to be harmless. The door rattled. He tightened his grip on the rifle. Then the door burst open. Two of the hunters stepped inside, their glowing helmets scanning the room. The man stood still, face blank, as if surprised but not afraid. He had learned long ago never to show fear to enemies. One of them raised a hand, speaking in a voice that was not quite human. It was flat, mechanical, filled with static. The man did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. "Where are they?" He shrugged slowly, keeping his face calm. "I don't know what you're looking for," he said, his voice steady. The hunter tilted its head, almost curious. The second one began scanning the floor with a strange device, a beam of red light sweeping across the wood. The man's heart pounded. If that beam touched the cellar door, they would know. Thinking quickly, he kicked over a chair. The noise startled them. "You think I'm hiding something?" he shouted, forcing anger into his voice. "This is my home. Get out." The hunters looked at him, silent. Then one raised its weapon, aiming at his chest. The man acted without thought. His rifle fired, the sound thunderous in the small cabin. The bullet struck the glowing helmet, cracking it but not breaking through. The hunter staggered, hissing like metal grinding against stone. The second hunter lunged forward. The man rolled aside, firing again, but the bullet only tore through armor, not enough to stop it. The hunter's weapon glowed, charging with deadly light. Suddenly, the floor creaked. A sound came from below. The child, frightened, had made a noise. The hunter froze, its head snapping toward the floor. It had heard the man's blood turn cold. He had no choice. He grabbed the broken chair leg and swung it hard, smashing the glowing weapon aside. The shot burned into the wall, setting it on fire. Smoke filled the cabin. The man shoved his shoulder into the hunter, knocking it against the doorframe. It stumbled, then steadied, ready to strike again. But before it could, a sharp whistle came from outside. Another group of hunters calling them back. Both hunters stepped away, retreating quickly into the forest. The fire crackled in the corner, smoke rising through the roof. The man dropped to his knees, coughing. His hand shook as he pulled open the trapdoor. The child was crying silently, holding the mother tighter, afraid to come out. He knelt beside them. "They know," he whispered. His voice was rough. "They know you're here." The child looked at him, eyes full of something more than fear. It was trust. It believed he could protect them. The man felt the weight of that trust pressing heavy on his chest. He was only one man. He had no army, no technology, no help. And yet, in this moment, he became the wall between them and the hunters. He packed what little he had: food, water, ammunition. He wrapped the mother in blankets, lifting her gently. The child followed close, never letting go of his coat. The cabin burned behind them as they left, flames reaching high. It was no longer a refuge. It had become a signal for the enemy to follow. Through the thick forest they moved deeper into the unknown. The hunters would come again. They would not stop until the mother and child were taken. And the man knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the shadows of the trees, a red light blinked. A signal. A tracker. They were already being hunted. The forest was quiet again, but it was the kind of silence that made the man uneasy. His cabin was gone, burned to the ground. Smoke from the ruins still drifted into the sky, a signal for anyone searching. He had nothing left now, no home, no safety. Only the weight of the alien mother on his back and the small child walking close behind. They moved deeper into the woods, far from the roads and villages. The man knew these forests better than most. He had once used them to hide from men and their wars. Now he was using them to hide from something far more dangerous. Hours passed before he stopped. They reached a cave hidden between sharp rocks. The entrance was narrow, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. He set the mother down gently inside, laying her against the stone wall. The child followed, clutching her hand. For a time, there was only the sound of the mother's shallow breathing. The man gave the child water and food, though he noticed the child ate strangely, taking in only small amounts, as if it did not need much. When he turned back, the mother's eyes were open. They glowed faintly in the dark. The man froze. He had not seen her awake since the crash. Her voice was weak, but her words, though broken, were in his language now. "You helped us," she whispered. The man knelt beside her. "Yes, but I don't know why. I don't even know what you are." Her lips curved in something almost like a smile, though full of sadness. "Not enemy. Not to you." The child leaned closer, placing its glowing hands on her wound again. The faint light spread, helping her breathe easier. She touched the child's head gently before looking back at the man. "I was leader long ago. Commander of fleet," she said slowly, carefully, as if building sentences from broken stones. "But I chose wrong. I chose to protect my child. And for that, I became traitor." The man frowned. "Traitor to who?" Her eyes darkened. "To my own kind. To those who believe strength means no mercy. To those who fear what my child carries." The man looked at the small figure curled beside her. The child stared back at him, innocent yet strangely powerful. He remembered the light that came from its hands. He remembered how the hunters searched so desperately. "What do they want?" he asked. The mother's voice trembled. Inside him is hope, power, a gift. My people, they fear it. They want to control it or destroy it. Because if the child grows, if he learns, he will change everything. Her words chilled the man. Change everything? He thought of human wars, of leaders killing for less. If what she said was true, then this small child was more than just a refugee. He was something that could shape the future of worlds. The mother coughed, her glowing marks flickering faintly. "You must protect him," she said, her eyes piercing into his. "Not just from them, but from me." The man blinked. "From you?" Her voice grew softer, almost a whisper. "I am dying. And when I die, they may find me. They may use my body to track him, or worse. I may lose control before the end." The child looked at her with wide, frightened eyes. It didn't understand every word, but it understood enough. The man clenched his fists. "I'm no hero," he muttered. "I'm no soldier anymore. Why me?" The mother smiled faintly, though her eyes shone with strange wisdom. "Because you are human. And humans survive. Always. Even in the dark." Her words cut deep into him. He wanted to deny it, to push the responsibility away. But when he looked at the child, he knew there was no escape. He had chosen this path the moment he lifted them from the burning wreck. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed from outside the cave. The man raised his rifle instantly, motioning for silence. The mother and child went still. Shadows moved at the entrance. Red lights flashed between the trees. The hunters were searching again. The man whispered, "Stay here," and crawled toward the narrow opening. He peered through the rocks. 3 hunters stood in the clearing, their helmets glowing as they scanned the ground. One of them bent low, pulling a device from its belt. The machine pulsed with faint blue light, sending ripples into the air. A tracker. The man's stomach dropped. They were following the mother's blood. The glowing stains on his clothes were leading them closer. He wiped his hands on the soil, trying to cover the faint shimmer. Then he moved back inside. "They're coming," he said, his voice low but firm. The mother's hand tightened on his arm. "Protect the child, even if I fall." "Do you swear it?" The man hesitated. He had never sworn to anyone since the war. Promises had cost him too much. But this time when he looked into her glowing eyes, he nodded. "I swear." The cave grew colder. The child pressed against him, trembling but trusting. The hunter's shadows stretched across the rocks, and deep in the silence the man understood. His life was no longer his own. He was carrying the last hope of something far greater than himself. The chase had only begun. The cave was dark, but outside the hunter's lights glowed red through the trees. The man held his rifle tight, his heart beating like a drum. The alien mother lay weak against the stone wall, her glowing veins flickering. The child clung to his coat, eyes wide with fear. The mother whispered, "They are close. They will not stop. You must take him, go." The man shook his head. "I'm not leaving you here." Her hand pressed his arm with surprising strength. "If I slow you, they will catch him. Protect the child. That is all that matters." The man swallowed hard, torn between duty and survival. But before he could answer, the sound outside grew sharper. Metallic steps, static voices. The hunters were scanning the rocks, closing in. The man whispered to the child, "Stay quiet. Stay close." He lifted the mother onto his back again, ignoring her protest. With his free hand, he grabbed the rifle and led them deeper into the cave. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to crawl. The smell of damp earth filled the air. Behind them, the hunters entered the cave mouth. Their lights cut through the darkness like knives. The man pushed forward, breath heavy, until the tunnel opened into a second chamber. The ceiling was cracked and faint moonlight spilled in from above. He looked up. A narrow opening led outside, but it was high, too high to climb easily. He set the mother down and searched the chamber quickly. Rocks, old roots, nothing useful, until he spotted a broken wooden beam maybe left by miners long ago. He dragged it under the opening, planting it like a ladder. "Go," he told the child, pointing upward. The child hesitated, looking at the mother. She gave a weak nod. "Go," she whispered. The child climbed, small hands glowing faintly on the rough wood. Halfway up, the beam cracked. The man steadied it with his shoulder, gritting his teeth as splinters dug into his skin. The child reached the opening and pulled itself out into the night air. The man turned to the mother. She shook her head, pain in her eyes. "I cannot climb." "Leave me," he ignored her. He lifted her in his arms, climbing slowly, forcing every muscle to obey. The beam groaned, threatening to snap. Rocks rained down from the ceiling, but inch by inch he rose. At the top, the child reached down with glowing hands, trying to help. Somehow that small light gave him strength. With a final push, he pulled himself and the mother out of the cave. They collapsed in the grass, gasping for air, but there was no time. The hunters' voices echoed below, then rose. They were climbing too. The man grabbed the child's hand and dragged the mother into the forest. Branches whipped his face, roots clawed his feet, but he did not stop. The night was alive with danger, every shadow a threat, every sound a warning. Then behind them, beams of red light pierced the trees. The hunters were close. The man ducked into a ravine, moving along the stream to mask their trail. His boots splashed in the water, but at least the glowing bloodstains were washed away. They followed the stream until it split into two paths. He stopped, breathing hard, unsure which way to go. The mother, half-conscious, lifted a trembling hand and pointed left. Safer there. He did not question how she knew. He obeyed. The path grew narrower, leading to a cluster of ancient stones. Strange carvings marked them, symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The mother's eyes widened. This place, old. Very old. The child touched one of the stones, and for a moment the symbols burned brighter. A hum filled the air, deep and powerful. The man's skin prickled. "What is this?" The mother's voice was weak but certain. "A refuge. Long before my kind. Others came. They left power here. The child awakens it." The hum grew louder. The ground shook faintly. And then, from the stone circle, a wave of light rippled outward, spreading into the forest. The hunters froze in the distance. Their red lights flickered. Their weapons hissed, disrupted by the wave. The man did not understand the science, but he understood the gift. The stones had bought them time. "Move," he said, lifting the mother again. They left the circle quickly before the light faded. The forest seemed endless. Every step was pain, every breath heavy, but he did not stop. The child walked silently, as if understanding how important every moment was. Hours later, when dawn touched the sky with gray light, they found another cave. Smaller, hidden under roots and vines. The man carried the mother inside and set her down. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow. She looked at him with fading eyes. "You saved us again, but I am near my end." The child clutched her hand, tears glowing faintly on its cheeks. The man shook his head firmly. "No, you hold on. We're not done," she smiled weakly. "You do not understand. My time is almost gone. The child is the future. You must see this." The man looked at the child, small, fragile, yet carrying something powerful enough to shake worlds. He thought of the hunters, of the strange stones, of the glowing light that bent machines. He realized she was right. But before he could speak, a distant howl echoed through the forest.
Not an animal.
A machine. The hunters had regained the trail. The mother's eyes closed, her last strength fading. She whispered, barely audible, "Protect him, even from me." The man felt a chill. He did not understand those words fully, but he knew they were a warning. The child looked at him now, no longer only with fear, but with trust. With hope, the man tightened his grip on his rifle. His jaw set. The forest was no longer just a place to hide. It was a battlefield, and he had no choice but to fight. The sun had not fully risen, but the forest already trembled with sound. Distant engines roared. Metallic voices echoed through the trees. The hunters were closing in again, stronger than before. The man stood at the mouth of the small hidden cave, rifle in his hands, jaw set hard. Behind him, the alien mother lay weak, her glowing marks dim as fading stars. The child sat beside her, clutching her hand, silent tears shining on its face. There was no more running. He knew it in his bones. He had led them through rivers, rocks, and shadows, but the hunters always found the trail. If he kept moving, they would only be cornered again. If he stopped, at least he could choose the battlefield. The man looked around. The cave was part of an old ruin. Broken stone walls scattered among vines, half swallowed by the earth. Once long ago, this place must have been strong. Now it would be their shield. He worked quickly. He pulled branches across paths to confuse the trail. He set sharp stakes in the ground where he expected enemies to pass. He used rope, stones, and fire oil he had carried from his cabin. Every trap was simple, but simple was all he had. While he worked, the mother stirred, her voice a weak whisper. "You cannot face them all. Too many." The man glanced at her, his eyes cold but steady. "I've fought armies before. Numbers don't scare me. Failure does." The child left the mother's side and walked to him. It touched his hand with its small glowing fingers. No words, only trust. The man nodded once. "Stay with her. I'll handle the rest." Soon the forest grew still, too still. Then the sound came. Dozens of steps, armor grinding, weapons humming, red lights glowing through the mist. The hunters had arrived. The first one stepped into the ruins, scanning with its weapon raised. The man waited, breath calm, finger on the trigger. When the hunter crossed the hidden wire, a sharp spike swung down from a branch, striking its helmet with a crack. It fell. Sparks sprang. The others hissed in unison, their voices mechanical and harsh. They spread out, scanning the ruins. The man fired. His rifle thundered, echoing off stone. One hunter staggered back, armor pierced at the joint. Another trap exploded fire oil, flames rising to block their path. But there were too many. The hunters advanced in formation, their glowing weapons cutting through stone and wood alike. The man ducked behind a wall, firing again and again, each shot slowing them but never stopping them. Bullets tore armor, but the hunters kept coming, relentless. One leapt through the fire, landing close. Its weapon glowed, ready to strike. The man swung his rifle like a club, smashing the creature's helmet until it cracked open. Inside was not a human face, just a pale mask of flesh and wires, something both alive and dead. He felt no victory, only dread. From inside the cave, the child screamed. The man turned. 3 hunters had broken through from the side, heading straight for the mother and child. His chest burned with fear. He charged, throwing himself between them. His rifle fired point blank, dropping one. He shoved another into a pit trap, where sharp stakes tore through its armor. The last one swung its weapon, burning a line across his shoulder. Pain ripped through him, but he did not fall. He grabbed a stone and smashed its glowing visor until the light went dark. His breath came in gasps, his arms heavy, his body screaming with pain. But he still stood. The hunters regrouped, circling the ruins. Their leader stepped forward now, taller, armor brighter, its weapon twice the size of the others. It spoke in that flat, broken voice, but this time the man understood the meaning. Give. The child. The man spat blood, raising his rifle. You'll have to kill me first. The leader raised its weapon. The air charged with power. But before it could fire, a sudden light burst behind the man. The child. Its small body glowed brighter than ever, its hands raised. The strange symbols from the ancient stones around the ruins lit up, answering its call. A wave of energy exploded outward, throwing the hunters back. Their weapons flickered and died. Some collapsed, armor smoking. The man stared, shielding his eyes. The child stood at the center of the ruins, light pouring from its skin. Its eyes no longer full of fear, but something greater. Power. Destiny. The mother whispered weakly from the cave, her voice breaking. It begins. He cannot hide now. The hunters roared in frustration, trying to rise, but the man finished them with bullets and fire while they were weak. He fought like a man possessed, driven by something beyond survival. Driven by the child's trust. When the last hunter fell silent, the ruins grew still again. Smoke and ashes hung in the morning air. The man staggered back, leaning on his rifle. His body was torn, bleeding, but he was alive. The child ran to him, glowing still, wrapping small arms around his waist. The man looked down, placing a rough hand on its head. Behind them, the mother lay fading. Her eyes, though weak, shone with pride. You stood, human, against many. You, our hope too. The man wanted to argue, but no words came. His throat was tight. The mother's last breath trembled as she whispered, "Protect him, always." Her glowing veins dimmed, her hand falling still. The child wept silently, holding her hand, light flickering in sorrow. The man closed his eyes. He had seen death before, but this death carried more weight than any battlefield. This was not the end of a soldier. This was the end of a mother's fight and the beginning of his. He looked at the child, glowing softly in the ruins. And for the first time he spoke with certainty. They will keep coming, but I'll be here. As long as I breathe, no one takes you. In the distance, far beyond the forest, a new roar of engines rose. More hunters. Stronger ones. The war was far from over. The last stand had been won, but the real battle was only beginning. The ruins were silent now, filled with the smell of smoke and burned metal. Broken hunters lay scattered across the ground, their armor cracked, their red lights dark. The man stood among them, his rifle heavy in his hands, his body trembling with exhaustion. Beside him the child glowed faintly, the light dimmer than before, but still alive. The little one's face was wet with tears. The mother's body lay still inside the cave, her glowing marks gone forever. The man placed a hand on the child's shoulder. He did not speak. Words felt too small for this moment. For a long time they stayed there, surrounded by the remains of the battle. But peace would not last. From the distance came a new sound, a low thunder that rolled through the sky. The man looked up and saw shadows moving above the clouds. Not one ship, but many. Their shapes were vast, covering the morning sun. Red lights blinked across their hulls like eyes searching for prey. The child's glow flickered in fear. The man tightened his grip on the rifle. "They're coming again," he muttered. But this time he knew the hunters would not arrive in small numbers. This time they would come with everything they had. The child turned toward him, its eyes glowing softly, almost asking a question without words. What now? The man crouched down, his face close to the child's. "Listen to me. Your mother gave everything to keep you safe. And I swore I would too. Whatever they send, whatever comes, I'll stand between you and them. Always." The child blinked slowly, then lifted its small glowing hands. It touched the man's chest just above his heart. A warmth spread through him, not painful but strong like a fire inside his veins. His tired muscles steadied. His wounds burned, then eased. He looked at the child in shock. "What did you—" The child whispered its first clear word in his tongue. "Strength." The man's chest tightened, not with fear but with something greater. He realized the child was not just a burden to protect. The child was a partner now, offering its gift, sharing its light. But the sky rumbled again, louder, closer. The enemy ships were descending. The man scanned the ruins, thinking fast. Running was useless. Hiding was useless. But maybe they could make the hunters pay dearly. He began moving quickly, setting what traps he could with the little he had left. Broken weapons from fallen hunters, fire oil from shattered jars, stones stacked and ready to fall. Every trick mattered. The child watched him, then walked into the center of the ruins. The ancient stones responded again, glowing faintly. Their carvings pulsed as if remembering old power. The child placed both hands on the largest stone. A hum filled the air. The man felt the ground vibrate beneath his feet. The stones were waking once more, answering the child's call. This time the light was stronger, brighter, reaching toward the sky. The ships above slowed, their lights flickering. The man could almost hear the confusion in their signals. Then the first wave of hunters dropped from the ships, landing at the edge of the forest. Dozens. Then hundreds. The trees shook under their weight. The man raised his rifle, every muscle ready. The child's glow spread wider, wrapping the stones in light. It turned to the man, eyes filled with calm now, not fear. Hope, it whispered. The hunters charged. The man fired, each shot cracking through the ruins. The traps exploded, fire and stone tearing through their ranks. Still they came, endless red lights swarming like insects. Then the child lifted its arms. A wave of pure energy burst from the stones, blinding in its brightness. The hunters were thrown back, their weapons dead, their armor cracking like glass. The ships above trembled, their engines stuttering. The man shielded his eyes, but he did not fall. The warmth inside him, the strength the child had given, kept him standing. When the light faded, silence fell again. The hunters were gone, burned to ash, scattered by the power. The ships above retreated, broken, their red lights vanishing into the clouds. The ruins stood empty. The man lowered his rifle slowly, his chest heaving. He looked at the child, who now lay weak on the stone floor, its glow faint and flickering. He rushed forward, lifting the child gently. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Don't leave me too." The child opened its glowing eyes, weak but steady. "Safe," it murmured. Tears stung the man's eyes, though he had not cried in years. He held the child close. "Safe for now. But they'll be back. They always come back." The child looked at him, small hand resting on his chest again. "Not alone," it whispered. The man stared at the horizon. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone. He rose to his feet, carrying the child. Behind them, the mother's body lay in quiet peace, her sacrifice complete. Ahead, the world waited, dangerous, merciless, but also full of possibility. The man took a deep breath. He was no longer just a wanderer, no longer just a man hiding from his past. He was a guardian now, the protector of the last hope of another world. He tightened his hold on the child, his voice steady. "They think humanity is weak. They think we break. But they'll learn the truth. Humans endure. Humans fight, and as long as I stand, you are not theirs to take." The child closed its eyes, resting against him, trusting him completely. The man walked into the rising sun, the ruins glowing faintly behind him, as if remembering what had happened. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of a greater journey,